And blessed to be with you, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio, joined by Victor Miller, not my brother, not related, but Victor Miller joining us, our celebrity co-host today. The first time we've ever done this here on KIDO Talk Radio. Victor, good morning.
Good morning to you, Kevin. How do you know we're not related?
Well, you never know. There's a lot of Millers. A lot of Millers indeed.
I'm thinking there's some link before Adam and Eve. I'm thinking, maybe.
Well, Victor will join us all morning long, taking your calls about the issues that matter to you at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. I do want to remind you as well, coming up on Friday, we will be at Independence Indoor Shooting in beautiful Meridian, Idaho. Shooting for free. You can shoot for free. Now, you've got to pay for your ammunition, but we're going to be there supporting the Second Amendment. And the Second Amendment, we'll be talking about, again, another tragic shooting over the weekend, a couple of them, and we'll take your calls on that issue as well at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Victor joins us here. Victor has lived in the Gem State for how long?
It'll be over 8 years now.
8 years?
Yeah, I come from the other C state, Connecticut.
Right. Connecticut.
I know it's Colorado, but I come from the other side.
Right, not California either.
No, not California.
Right. So
listening to the show this morning, I'm glad that I don't, because there seems to be some complaints about that side of the United States.
Well, you don't commit it.
The way they drive.
Right, you don't assimilate and stuff. Now, let me ask you, it's been 8 years? You've been here 8 years?
8 years.
Amazing.
Right. But I saw you before that.
I know. I remember the first time that you were here, you were visiting Idaho. What led you to the state of Idaho?
A 2006 Honda Odyssey, I think it was.
Right. I see.
And 2,500 miles. No, seriously, we had a governor named Tom Malloy, and he was dealing with a $4 billion deficit in Connecticut. And so he's going to pass $3 billion of new taxes and $1 billion of labor concessions, right, to make up the difference. They passed the $3 billion, and guess what? The labor unions decided not to add their billions, so they added even more taxes. I got the copy of the bill, 35 pages of new taxes coming into Connecticut. Since I worked on Wall Street for a long time and recommended stocks in your industry, actually, radio and television, I decided I would short Connecticut and go long Idaho, because I felt Idaho really was a great steward of the assets that this great state has.
Right.
And so it was actually pretty easy.
Right. Of all the places to live, though, it was Idaho. And you came out here. I can remember at the time our great friend Kevin Godwin, who is one of the people that hired me.
Yes.
The regional guy says, now this guy's coming in. He's a bigwig. Now we're going to put him in a room with you. And I'm going, of all the people to put in a room with, they sat you down here, and you and I talked radio for like 2 hours or something like that.
We did, and we continue to when we see each other on occasion. And so I covered the radio business for 21 years, radio and local TV business for 21 years on Wall Street as a banker, and then an equity analyst for Bear Stearns. And that's a story on its own, of course. But yeah, your meeting you was very memorable. And I really, I don't meet a lot with private companies because I was covering the public companies. So it was nice to sit down with somebody like you and get to understand how the private companies, radio companies work. Now you're a public company. Town Square is a public company.
Right.
But at that time you weren't. And it was just a very memorable meeting. I've always enjoyed spending time with you, Kevin.
Well, and Victor, I've always enjoyed your mentorship and your passion for the area to make it better. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But, it's just funny when you think of the changes in the state of Idaho that has happened over the past 8 years that you've been here. How would you describe it?
Well, I mean, just think about the huge Meridian projects that have gone on since I've been here 8 years ago. Think about the growth. I mean, I was speaking to the governor the Governor Otter the other day, and
the former.
Yeah. That's why I said former.
Okay.
And there's been 170,000 new people moving in since he started his administration. So that's over 11% growth for the state. And, then you go from a state like where I was in Connecticut, where we're actually the third most moved out of state in the country. And I think the great thing about our country is there's mobility. You can go where you think it best fits your lifestyle, what you believe in, and you can see places like Idaho. And I believe in assimilation. I mean, listening to your first hour, we came here and we were glad to assimilate into this great state. And, we love living here, but the growth is remarkable. Like every piece of spare land that existed 8 years ago, there's something there, an apartment complex, a new Jackson's, a new grocery store, a Costco. I mean, it is really amazing what's happening.
It is. You regret coming here?
Not at all. Mm-hmm. No, I mean, if you look at Connecticut, I mean, basically the federal government could have declared the Republican in Connecticut an endangered species, and the religious freedom that you have here, and the fact that you have a balanced budget, your state kind of is emblematic of the way I think a lot of the families in this state run their own lives. They're highly independent, and they're very competent, and they love hard work. They love family. They love their faith. They love freedom. And this right here, this KIDO with Kevin Miller is an embodiment of that. You've been here for what, 10 years now? When is your anniversary, by the way?
It was a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
A couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So
believe it or not, people said it wouldn't last. Some people say it still won't last.
Well, I read a press release said it was September that you were hired, so I'm thinking, I thought maybe your 10-year anniversary was coming up. But I mean, this show is emblematic of what the state stands for. You're a great symbol for what makes this state great.
Well, thank you indeed.
I mean that.
I appreciate that.
Miller to Miller.
Miller to Miller. Now, by the way, we'll take your phone calls at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Now, are you ready to talk some topics here?
Maybe.
All right.
I don't do this for a living.
Right. We have that. See, we're going to have to get Victor assimilated to the way we do here things as the mountain people. He's got that East Coast way of thinking that we've got to, kind of nudge him along.
Well, we're dressed a little bit differently this morning. So,
right.
It's true.
You're in your 3-piece suit, and I'm in my kickball tournament.
Well, 2-piece.
2-piece, yes.
Yes.
See, you notice that they always correct you east of the Great River as well.
All right.
Here, facts are overrated. But anyway, our great friend Victor Miller with us. So here we go. Here's our first topic of the day from Channel 7. Idaho's Medicaid expansion saga continues after first round of the proposed restrictions are rejected. Let's get the latest from Channel 7.
Disappointing and surprising. That was the reaction from Governor Brad Little, Senate Pro Tem Brent Hill, and House Speaker Scott Bedke after the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services rejected a Medicaid waiver. The waiver would have put low-income Idahoans making between 100 and 138% of the federal poverty level on state exchange-based health insurance plans instead of Medicaid. In a joint statement, Little, Hill, and Bedke said, quote, CMS pulled the rug out from under us, and the waiver remains a high priority for Idaho. Reclaim Idaho, however, feels it was a good decision because the waiver would have cost taxpayers $42 million per year.
It was a situation of less health care, more cost. It was a bad idea. Idaho really dodged a bullet when the feds decided to reject that particular restriction.
Currently, the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare is taking public comment about a second restriction, work requirements.
It's about reporting on people who are already working. So this is a paperwork penalty. This is a paperwork restriction that is going to have the effect potentially of kicking more than 20,000 Idahoans off of health care because they don't fill out paperwork correctly.
Reclaim Idaho says it creates a secondary gap, which is the opposite of what Medicaid expansion was intended to do.
This has been tried in several other states, and it's been a horror show everywhere they've tried it.
Kentucky, New Hampshire, and Arkansas have all had federal rulings against enforcing similar requirements. So Reclaim Idaho is encouraging everyone to voice their opinion.
The feds, they seem to ignore all of these comments in all of these different states, and the judge has said in all three cases, you can't do that.
You notice here, by the way, phone number is 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Kevin Miller, Victor Miller with us. You notice, Victor, when you're hearing this story, it's all one-sided from Reclaim Idaho, mm-hmm. And all it is, you have to wonder, where did Reclaim Idaho get their money? Where did they get their backing? We've got this concern that we have these third-party entities coming in that are going to reprogram the entire state.
It's interesting the initiative process. Just watching it here, because I don't think it's really used much where I came from in Connecticut. And they talk about the grassroots efforts, and it seems to me that there's a lot of money that's not Idaho money. So a grassroots effort to me means, so for example, let's say we did an initiative where someone said we're going to take away everyone's guns in Idaho. Do you think the grassroots initiative would come up from the people of Idaho with Idaho money to put a ballot measure to be voted on that we want to return that freedom? Yes, I think so. But it seems like in a lot of cases, initiatives, and I actually watched that closely, that whole initiative process that was going on at the State House. And I was wondering just how much money comes in from other places and just how grassroots is. And I did wanted to see it tighten a little bit, maybe not as much as was proposed, but I thought tightening the initiative process would probably be a good idea because of the thing you just mentioned.
Right.
Like, is it really an Idaho grassroots effort? Is it Idaho money? If it's that, I'm all for it.
Right. And we saw that with the governor. We saw that with Senator C. Scott Grow. C. Scott Grow put the initiative up, had the bill passed, and then it was withdrawn. I believe the governor vetoed it. And now the initiative process is still kind of loosey-goosey. So then we have Medicaid expansion, and Tea Party Bob and others, and people have called in here all the time saying, look, we can't afford this. And now the feds have pulled the bait and switch. It looks like we're going to have to pay more for this Medicaid expansion. We're all humanitarians, but at what cost?
Well, I will say that the healthcare in general, given my background, is not my specialty, but I've often wondered two things on things that I think about on healthcare. One is I have no idea what the price is of anything that I purchase in healthcare, which is kind of crazy, right? When we get insurance, they negotiate the prices. We have no idea what we're actually paying for it. The second thing is, do you have life insurance? Like, do you have like any kind of life insurance term a whole life?
My wife has a few on me, yes.
So as you know, you get rated.
Right.
Right? And I've often wondered why, and I guess maybe it's too cumbersome to do it, but in healthcare, why are people not rated for similar things? So if you want to, for example, smoke, if you want to smoke, it's going to cost you $10,000 a year more to do that. If you want to do this or that, that's kind of, it could be hurtful to your longevity. There's an extra.
Well, I think there is that way though. Isn't there?
But not so much. I don't think. I think group plans tend to lump everybody together, and everybody has the same premium.
Well, all right. Well, we'll get back to that in a minute. Your thoughts on Medicaid expansion? 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Why did this pass if we can't afford it? Plus, Idaho leads the nation for the highest increase in home prices. Are they worth it? Let's talk next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. All right, taking your calls about the issues that matter to you. Our celebrity guest host, Victor Miller, joining us, taking your calls at 580-5436. 580-KIDO. Before we get to some of the unfortunate news over the weekend, another shooting. Victor, you were just, as a listener, you were commenting on some of the more unique aspects of this program.
Yeah, I just think that I covered the radio business for a long time, and I think people in Idaho don't realize they've got, you have a treasure in you. They really do. I mean, we have a treasure in the Treasure Valley, and that's you, Kevin Miller, right there. And what I really love about the way you handle your show is your callers, especially. You allow a caller to have his or her say to the very end, and you're not combative. You don't interrupt. You let people see their comment all the way through. And I imagine sometimes you're wondering, like, whoa, this is a little bit out over his skis, like,
sure,
that ABC Sports that ski jumper there,
right?
But in general, it seems like you have a very intelligent listenership base. And
the callers on this program,
their callers are great.
They're intelligent, is what you're saying.
I think so. Don't you agree, Kevin Miller? It's your show, right?
I love that. Well, actually, it's owned by Town Square Media. It's their show. I'm just the steward of it. I always say that.
Well, you're a good steward of the airwaves. How about that?
Well, thank you. Like I said, I really enjoy just hearing what people have to say.
Right.
And some of the more fascinating comments, Max calling in with his unique take on solving some of the issues, problems. We were talking castration and stuff, and then somebody else calling in to respond. See, that's the whole vibe that I think a lot of people miss these days in local radio, and
I agree,
and really national radio anymore. Nobody takes calls, so
I agree. And you get a lot of them. I mean, obviously your listenership base is very engaged with your show, which is a great sign of health. Because I mean, I'm sure you've heard radio shows where they give the number over and over and over again, and they just keep giving the number over and over and over again. You're like, okay, is somebody out there that actually has a comment or wants to have answer a question or
right. That's why I'm so grateful for people to call in. Otherwise, when we started this show, it was me talking to myself for 4 hours at a time. Yes, that was a lot of me.
God help us.
Right. So when people always go, well, you let people talk too long. No, I think, A, you need a break, and B, it's good to hear opinions, even if the libs call in.
You tend to I notice with your, maybe tell us a little about your style, but you tend to let a person say what they need to say, and then you don't necessarily come back and, okay, here's the counter argument, or I want to argue with that, or
right.
You kind of, a lot of times you just say, thanks for calling.
Right.
Tell me why do you do that? Because a lot of hosts would engage that caller, maybe even attack the caller or provoke the caller. You just like to let people have their say.
Sure. I'll do that in 2 seconds. Traffic and weather together. 6:26.
The teaser.
Good morning, Dave. And here we are once again. Victor Miller joining us. Kevin Miller in the morning. KIDO Talk Radio. Why do I do this? It's funny.
It's definitely different.
It is, and it's a style that I originally had developed in New Hampshire. And there's a gentleman by the name of Bill Donovan in Alabama who is the guy that created Sean Hannity. Gave Sean his first job. And one of Bill's issues with me was that I was never opinionated enough. And it was funny. Alabama's very different. You go and you scream and you yell, and it's great, and it's fire and brimstone. And I've done that style in Alabama, Tennessee, and Pittsburgh. And in North Carolina, this show is very similar to what it was like in North Carolina, except I can out myself. I never said I was a Republican because the owner of the station there said, I want people to listen that are Democrats and Republicans. So he even had me register as an independent. And so even people at the station did not know my political background. And we did a lot of wonderful things. We went to Iraq. We covered Hurricane Katrina. A lot of great local stuff there. Covered all the Carolina hurricanes. But it was just a style that when I first came here, I thought, we'll just go back to, letting people yap. And one of the big influences on my career and on this program, besides that of Sean Hannity, is Paul Feinbaum, who hosts a show for ESPN, where you would listen to his program and you go, who are these wacko people? And to me, that was the biggest compliment ever. And if you ever hear his show, if you're a sports person, he just lets people talk. Now, he'll get into it occasionally, but he just lets people talk. And to me, everybody wants to be heard, but nobody wants to listen. So I thought we would listen. So that's where this quote style comes from.
Well, it's interesting because you're clearly opinionated, but you don't. Yeah. But you don't go off on your callers, which is unique.
It's unique to this area because this is a small town. This is a small market, and you have to go and see people, and you have to go toe-to-toe with people. I was at the Balloon Classic the other night. Some guy who disagrees with me on marijuana, Bishop, listens every day, was going to call in, gave me an earful, but he was nice and respectful. In other states, you can rail against the governor. You'll never meet the governor. Here, you're going to meet Governor Little. You're going to talk to him.
Exactly.
You have to work with people. So that's another reason why you don't sit there and go, eh. Now, we've done that occasionally in the past, but, in the future, you have to allow people to hear what they have to say. So,
what else is unique about this show is, by the way, I'm the farthest from a celebrity. I don't even have Facebook. Like,
You're-
no one
you're
needs to know
celebrity.
anything about me.
You're our celebrity guest host.
So anyway, the true story is that Kevin hosts an event for Idaho Chooses Life every December, and he actually auctioned off, to raise money for that great cause, the right to sit and chat with you live on your radio show. And I was fortunate enough to be the lucky winner.
You
on
won
that.
the bid.
Yeah, so I mean, it's people have to know that this was to raise money, and it's Kevin's heart. Obviously, between the Boise Rescue Mission, dressing up as a turkey is a tough thing. It's a tough thing, Kevin. Dressing as a turkey.
There's a lot of therapy that needs
a lot of therapy,
right?
And you'll make it through. I've got confidence. I think you're going to pull through. And then all the work you do with the schools, you and I have talked about that.
Right.
Maybe you should share your heart a little bit about why do you go into the schools? Because it may not be as thrilling as some other programming, but you feel like it's very important to go into the schools and kind of show the local market. Like, why do you do all this charity work? Why do you do the schools thing?
We'll find out next. Victor Miller with Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. There we have it. Victor Miller on the drums. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. You remember how old you were when you first heard this song? I think this is 1981.
Yes, I think that's right.
Blondie.
17 years old.
17, back in the day.
Junior in high school.
Connecticut. There you have it. Before we answer your question, I do want to remind you that it is Suicide Prevention Month here in the state of Idaho and throughout the country. The Idaho Suicide Prevention Hotline, 208-398-4357. That's 208-398-4357. Victor Miller is with us, our celebrity co-host. You've asked me a question. By the way, we'll take your calls. Certainly your reaction to the shooting in Texas. Does this mean more gun control? 580-5436. 580-KIDO. Coming up, we'll hear from the Libs. They're upset, they're angry, and they want to take your guns. And don't forget, speaking of guns, Girls with Guns 2019 now going on the KIDO Talk Radio app and on our website. Vote for your favorite girl with her gun. So that was a lot before we get back to it.
It's quite a segue.
Yeah, having you here, I'm actually focused. Usually I'm off on a tangent. Back to the schools, a lot of people say it's either about, revenue or ratings or what have you. This is the only program, and I believe it was crucial to this program and this audience winning the Marconi Award, which is the best award that you can win in broadcasting and radio in 2014. And it's something that hasn't been done anywhere else. I started this program in North Carolina, but it was more of a need here. And we've been doing it since 2013. Over 120 schools, 120,000 kids have been impacted by this. And what we do is we go to schools and we just do old-fashioned radio. We have a student on, a teacher, a parent, an administrator, somebody that makes a difference. Because one thing that we talk about in Idaho is education. People are always concerned about education. And like a lot of things that we do, whether it's camping out with the Boise Rescue Mission, sometimes you have to do things that are of the greater good.
Amen.
And education is the greater good. You're not going to have a news talk show. You're not going to have a music show. Go to a school and make that commitment because it's suicide. It's rating suicide. It's this type of suicide. People don't believe that it'll work. I've had people in this building tell me, don't do it. This doesn't make sense. But the reason why we do it is there's a lot of good going on, and we should shed a light on that.
Amen.
So that's why we go to the schools.
Thank you for doing that.
And we thank the schools
I've
for
actually
having
watched
us.
one of your, I was at the Ambrose School, which you visited a couple of times.
Sure.
To sit on your show there.
Yeah. And that's the thing, whether it's the Ambrose schools, whether it's Eagle High, whether it's Columbia High School, there are so many good things going on. And so many times you have conservatives bashing education and this, that, and the other. And they have a right to do that, but you got a lot of good conservatives and some good liberals making a difference. A few years ago, this might have been right before you got here. You remember the Nampa School District, all of a sudden, and you're a numbers guy, right?
I am.
You're like a savant with numbers, right?
What does that mean?
Well,
just kidding.
Exactly.
I'm just
it's like my wife says, I see these words and I don't know what they mean. However, you're a savant with numbers. So it was either $1 million or $5 million. The Nampa School District misallocated the money. That was a big uh-oh. So the support staff had to be privatized. Right. Teachers left. It was a whole exodus from the Nampa school system. It was a disaster. But what the amazing thing about the Nampa School District is that every day, no matter what was said in the press, no matter what the headlines were, you had teachers, you had kids putting on their chin straps and going to school. And I think that's the story that needs to be told. Hence, that's why we went to Nampa High, Columbia High, because all we ever hear about is the negative. Like with these school shootings, everybody's afraid. Well, I'm afraid to blah, blah, blah. Well, we went to Columbia High. Life goes on. We don't focus in on the good. So that's the reason why we do the schools.
Amen. And then all the charities, obviously, how do you choose the charities that you feel most connected to?
Well,
is it a personal connection or
you just see people
about your life or
you just see people that make a difference and don't have government funding, like the Boise Rescue Mission, St. Vincent de Paul. We've done some stuff for them. The old Canyon County Animal Shelter, now it's the West Valley Humane Society. There are a lot of things that we'd like to do, but this is a small business operation. It's Ray Amaya that runs everything in there and coordinates everything that allows me to do what I do. This is our staff. I would love to do more, but you're limited by your resources. So, we would love to do more, but it's just, again, a challenge to get out there. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
So I think you and I met almost, 12 years ago? I
still like it when you came in here because you were mysterious. You had all these questions. And as I said to everybody, including Kevin Godwin, I go, that guy's buying the radio station.
You did not.
And that was the biggest fear with everybody here. I go, yep, I think it's going to be Miller Broadcasting. But it's funny when
you
people...
told me that I was going to buy the radio station.
Right. Well,
I was just trying to learn more about the industry, and you've got no wonder this guy was sweating when I came.
Right,
in.
but of all the people, of all the places to go, you chose Idaho to focus in on local radio. And whether it's local radio, whether it's the local police, you can still make a difference here. I think that's important. I don't know if you can make a difference in Connecticut anymore. I don't know if you can make a difference in New Hampshire anymore or in California. But here, you can make a difference. Look at you. You've gotten involved with the Fellowship for Christian Athletes. You've gotten involved in politics. You go to some of these other states, and the people don't know you. You know people here.
Yeah, no, it's that is special about Idaho is that the access. If you're really committed to something, you really love it, you can work at it and have some influence. It is really a special place. And it's funny how you talk about it being a small market. I mean, we've cracked the top 100, Kevin.
Number 94, yes.
And I remember when I was on Wall Street for a while, like Boise was like the second fastest growing city in America behind Las Vegas for a number of years. And it feels like that's happening again, that Boise is becoming one of those really top growth places. And what's really not to love about this place? The people are lovely.
They are.
They're great people.
Now, I have to ask you some fanboy questions.
Oh, gosh.
By the way, coming up, we are going to take your calls at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Here's Elizabeth Warren on why she wants to take your guns.
I think we could have a voluntary buyback program, but I think it's not the most effective way to think only in terms of here's one thing we need to do. We need to treat this as the public health emergency that it is, and it's going to take a lot of pieces and a lot of changes that we need to do.
Oh, she doesn't sound so bad. What about you, Joe?
I've seen nothing. The president has no intestinal fortitude to deal with this. He knows better. His instinct was to say, yeah, we're going to do something on background check. What's he doing? Come on. This is disgraceful. This is disgraceful what's happening.
And there we have it. Thanks to our friend Victor Miller. Congressman Fulcher will join us next hour about the move for gun control. And do you believe it's time for background checks? Do you believe it's time for more gun control? Now, Victor, before we get to that, and we'll take some calls on it, let me hit you with this. from covering the radio industry, you've gotten to know all the big names in talk radio, right?
Well, I mean, one nice thing about being on Wall Street is occasionally you get to meet some of the people that make it go.
Sure.
And so I was able to, and still I'm friends with Sean Hannity, who is just an amazing person. And I became friends with Mancow Muller, who you may know from the Chicago market. And and I'm still friends with him. And I really admire the work ethic. I mean, thank gosh you didn't make me come in for the first hour. I mean, I just don't know how you do it every day. And, to watch Sean, who does both radio and a television show every day, because remember Bill O'Reilly used to do that.
Right.
And then he dropped to just the television side for a while. But it's just amazing to me. So it was interesting. The first time that I met Sean, I went to a show when it was Hannity and Combs. And there's no studio audience there. So I was just invited by a guest who happened to have a talk radio network. It was actually called Talk Radio Network. And so 20 minutes into the show, Kevin, he leans over the dais and he's like, to my friend and me, he's like, how would you like to come over to my house tonight? You can fly down. I'm interviewing a senator tomorrow, and you can just kind of hang out, watch what I do, and things like that. And I called my wife. I'm like, hey, do you mind if I go down and do this? Like, when's this ever going to happen? Yeah, 20 minutes in. And as you go through the airports and you just watch him, people love him. I think they appreciate his blue collar work ethic, and that he is very patriotic and he loves the country. And so that's kind of cool.
What was his house like?
Oh, I can't say. It was.
You can't say.
I mean, it was beautiful.
You were at Sean Hannity's house.
It was beautiful.
Yeah. There is a magic about Sean Hannity that does not come across on television as much as it does in person. Having done a couple of appearances with him, having seen him one-on-one, he's the nicest guy you'll ever want to meet.
He's unbelievably nice. He's so humble. People want pictures, autographs, talk with him. You are his focus for
right.
when he's in front of you. But tell me, you have very, very high regard for him. What do you see in him that you kind of what do you see in him that you think is like the ultimate gold standard in radio?
We'll talk about it next. You're listening to KIDO Talk Radio, your home for Hannity. Well, it feels like a Monday, even though it's Tuesday. Blessed to be with you, Kevin Miller, in the morning, along with our celebrity co-host, Victor Miller. Victor will be here until 9 o'clock today. Also want to thank our friends at CapEd Credit Union. Outstanding event, Spirit of Boise Balloon Classic. Wonderful Night Glow event, and I know everybody enjoyed the Sunday launch as well. And, Victor, back to your points. We'll get to Hank in a minute. We'll get to your traffic and weather before Fox News at the top. One thing that I admire about Sean Hannity is when I was in Huntsville, Alabama, and I always call that the cradle of talk shows because so much talent came out of that building thanks to a gentleman that used to own the property. His name Bill Donovan. He goes, you need to call Sean. I go, I don't want to call Sean. Sean doesn't know me from Adam. But I talked to him a few times, and he was always just very nice. And the cool thing about Sean Hannity is if he met you once, he'll recognize you wherever. And wow. I can recall, like for me, I have to hear somebody's voice. If I hear your voice, then I'll put a name to it. Mm-hmm. But with Sean, he has this gift where he'll remember you. I can remember meeting him outside the White House. I'm walking around in a stupor, and there he goes, Kevin, how you doing? And he really cares. TV and radio don't do him justice. And again, in an industry where a lot of people check out, it's invigorating to see a guy at his level continue to raise the standard. And I remember talking to Michael Harrison about it before he had Sean Hannity as the number one guy in America. I go, dude, we've never seen anything like this. And we'll never see anything like him again when it comes to being a talk show person. And I would say he's more like a media entity because he's got Hannity.com and those things. But in his heart, he's a radio guy. Mm-hmm. And many people that come from television do radio or vice versa. They don't have that love, and you can hear that every day. And that's why we're so blessed to have him here on KIDO Talk Radio every afternoon at 3.
Yes, and you're always driving right.
Yes.
Always turning right.
Yeah, in Idaho, we take a lot of right turns, Kevin.
Now, with radio, when you say radio and TV don't do him justice, what do you
They
mean
don't.
by that? What
Well,
does
you
that
met him
mean?
you met him in person.
Oh, you mean just to
Right.
get? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean a lot of people actually think that are not conservative.
Right.
Think that he must be not a nice guy.
Coolest
I'm
guy
like-
in the world.
And he said, if you met him,
Right.
you would be you would be changed. Your
Right.
opinion would be changed
Yeah.
because you'd have to change your opinion.
Where I tend to be more of an introvert, you see Sean just like, even if people disagree with him, he just thrives on that. And it's not in a mean way. It's in a happy way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, whoa, when most people that are on the radio, they're introverts, but not him. I can remember in Greenville, North Carolina, we were doing an appearance at a Walmart. He was doing an appearance. I glommed on. The crowd's going crazy. And he looks over and he goes, there's my friend Kevin Miller. Hello, Kevin. I'm waving. And there was this guy when he was getting back, going back to New York with his family. There's this guy at the fence screaming at him. So Sean goes over and has a nice conversation with him, where most of us would say,
Right, get him out of here.
Right, not at all with Sean.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah. Hank, hang on. We're going to get to you coming up. First, traffic and weather together. Let's get you to work safely and on time. KIDO Talk Radio. Time is 6:57. Good morning, Dave. And coming up now, let me go. Hank, we're going to do something we usually don't do. Can you hang on for a minute?
I will.
Okay, we're going to give you plenty of time coming up. So I apologize for not getting to you, but if you can hang on, you'll come up right after the news.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Hank.
All right. See, the little informal here we have here. It's the antithesis of the big time.
There you go.
So Hank will join us coming up.
It's
Also,
real, though.
It is. We try to be authentic.
And you are.
Thank you. Victor Miller joining us. And Victor, what else are we going to be talking about? Some special guests. We've got Jody Buckner joining us.
Jody Buckner, yes. We're going to talk about the Fellowship of Christian Athletes golf scramble that's named now after her husband, Bill Buckner. And I think we're going to have our friend Russ Fulcher coming in. And,
Congressman.
Yes, Congressman Russ Fulcher.
You know all the big stars.
And former Congressman Raul Labrador is rumored to be coming in today.
The chairman of the state party will join us.
Chairman of the state party.
Wow. I'm glad you're with us. Otherwise, be a lot of pressure on myself and Ray Amaya today.
To get the bookings?
Yes.
I think you could probably pull it off.
I don't know. You might have a career
I think
as a
you can
booker.
pull it off.
All right. Fox News next. KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning.